Hello, everybody. Welcome to Marketing Mondays. It's been about 6 to 7 weeks since we've been here dealing with a couple health issues, but I'm glad to be back. This is Marketing Mondays number 65. As always, give me 1 second to be able to go ahead and share this into relevant groups so we can get some people in here, and then we will get going with this. As always, feel free to put your questions in the comments, and I would be happy to get to those. We're going to move pretty quick today because we have a lot to get done. So if you have any questions, make sure you get them in early so that I can answer them. I've got one more. Let me see here. It's been a minute since I did this, so I'm not as fine-tuned as I was 7 weeks ago. It's just been a little while, but anyway, I think we got it going now. So good to see some people in. Christy, Robert, Tim, good to see you in the room. Thank you for welcoming me back. I'm excited to be back as much as anybody. Again, David, good to see you here. So anyway, we've got a bunch of questions to jump into here today, and I want to make sure we give them adequate time that had come in during the time that the broadcast was not being done on Mondays. But as always, if you have questions that you'd like to ask, put them in the comments, and I will make sure to make a priority on those because they are live. So that being said, let's go ahead and get going. I appreciate everybody being here. And Jordan, good to see you drop in. And thanks for the well wishes. So here we go. First question that came in: is there such a thing as over optimizing a website page? So basically, the short answer to that is yes. But let me explain because it's a little bit more involved than that. So what you might mean to, and this is going to actually flow right into another question that just came in as well. So that's going to be great. So over optimizing a website page might mean that in an effort to come up for a certain search word or search term or optimize it for a certain search term or key phrase, that you overuse that you design a page that's actually more focused on like what they call, packing it in, like search engine optimization is SEO packing, than it is creating useful content. So you're overusing the keyword or the key phrase, and it doesn't read naturally, let's say, or you're just overusing it such that it wouldn't be the way if you were writing it not to be SEO related, you might write it slightly differently. So when you look at, we use different tools in the agency to let us know if a page is being optimized properly or if it's being, optimized, over optimized. Like if keywords are used too much or whatever, the actual tools we use will say, hey, you've used this too much or you haven't used it here. You need to update that. So we utilize tools to help guide us in that and make sure, because the longer your article is, the more you would want to use your keywords. You want to use your keywords as a percentage of the overall words in your article. So if you have a really long article, you could utilize your words more often. But if you have a really short article, you don't want to overuse them. So it's not a really easy answer. And I hate to give these vague answers, but essentially you want to write an article that makes sense, that reads well, that's informative to people, but it's not over optimized. It doesn't seem like you're trying to fit words in where they don't belong, just in an effort to get the optimization for search engines. And it doesn't make sense when you read it. It reads clumsy and things like that. So that actually goes right into, and I'm going to take a little while on this next question because it's a really great question. And I think it hits on a lot of different things. And it's the topic of duplicate content. And this question just came up over the weekend, and duplicate content, and is there a penalty with Google? And how should you orient your website such that you're not going to hit this, what some people view as a penalty? So let's jump into it, because again, there's a lot of different things here. So first of all, what is duplicate content and what isn't duplicate content? A lot of people, duplicate content in short is that you have content on your website that appears somewhere else on the web or somewhere else on your website. So just for stats alone, recent, different things I've read say that 29% of all content on the website, that's 29% of all content on the website is duplicate content. Whether that is descriptions, like let's say that it's a tool or an item that is being sold on a variety of different sites, and the description but is used by the manufacturer's description is used in a bunch of different sites, whatever the case may be, or it's pages that have been duplicated or things like that. Duplicate content is essentially something where the exact same content appears in multiple places on the web. So is that a penalty? Does it hurt your website to have duplicate content? In short, I'm going to separate duplicate content into two different categories: duplicate content on your website and duplicate content off your website. So duplicate content on your website, let's address that first. That would be where, in an effort to trick, if you will, the search engines, or maybe you're not trying to trick it, you just don't know better, you have multiple pages on your own website that have the same content. Now, how might this happen innocently, where you're not trying to trick Google or do anything like that, but you end up having duplicate content on your website? Let's say that you service a variety of different markets. You're in an area, maybe a rural area, where you actually are in one city, but you service 10 different markets. So you create location pages on your website that are specific to those markets. But instead of creating, there's ways to create those sites so where even if you're basically most of the information is the same, you can use certain types of code such that that information only appears one time on your website. A mistake a lot of people might make is that they take that website and they duplicate it 10 different times, and then they just change out the city or the market, but it's 10 different versions of 90% of that page, let's say, is all the same content with just some minor changes. That would, from Google's perspective, show up as 10 pages on your website that are largely the same, duplicate content. What Google will read into that is that you are trying to game the system, if you will. You're trying to pack your website with content in an effort to make it seem like there's more there than it is. And they may downgrade your website as a result of that. They may actually negatively impact your website because they view it as you packing the website with content that's not differentiated. And they would potentially view that as a way of you trying to game the SEO algorithm. So they may penalize you for that. So that's on-site duplicate content. And you want to avoid that. You don't want to have your website have a lot of content across the different website that is the same. In fact, you don't really want to have that at all. So there are ways to do things like, we have clients that have multiple markets that they service, and there are ways via using code that you can have the same content appear on multiple different websites. But from Google's perspective, when they crawl it, it only appears once. So you don't hit that duplicate content penalty, even though you have the same content displaying in multiple areas on your website. So that's on-site duplicate content, and that is something you definitely want to avoid. Now, how about off-site duplicate content? This may be where you take an article from a manufacturer and you put a decent chunk of it on your website. Or even like we do for a lot of our clients, we create what are called like semi-custom articles, where we may utilize a great deal of the article's an informative article, but we may use largely the meat and potatoes of the article we may utilize in a town like Seattle, and also in a town like Washington, D.C., but we make changes to like certain city and state areas and obviously the contact information, things like that. So what you have in that case is you actually have duplicate content, offsite duplicate content. That content is not penalized by Google. Now, the issue a lot of people run into is they think that content would be penalized by Google, but it's actually not. What Google does is it tries to figure out the primary source of that content, and that primary source gets more SEO momentum, if you will, than all the sources that duplicate it. So let's go back to my example of a manufacturer that has a description on an item that's maybe used across many, many different websites on the internet. the manufacturer's site, if that could be viewed by Google as being the source of that information or the primary source, would get the most SEO benefit from that. The other websites that copy that content will get less of a benefit. They wouldn't be penalized per se, but they wouldn't get as much benefit from that. Now, there still may be reasons you want to do that. Obviously, from a user experience standpoint, if it's a great description, it still may make sense for you to have that duplicate content on your website, even if it's not giving you an overwhelming SEO benefit. Like I said, user experience, coming to your website, feeling like your website's very informative and things like that. There's obviously a lot of benefits. If you're adding helpful information to your website and driving people there to consume it, it may not matter that somebody in another market has similar content, because the primary way that you're using that content is to drive people to your website and give them a good user experience and hopefully generate a lead from that. So I'm trying to differentiate so that you can kind of understand. Now, all of that being said, ultimately, where you really want to customize. Even if you're utilizing duplicate content off-site, you do want to do some customization to that content to make it unique to you, whether that's a footer that gives your contact information and talks about the city and state, maybe has some outbound links and some inbound links on your website that attach it to your website. So you do want to customize it. You really don't want to just copy and paste from another website. First of all, there might be plagiarism you need to take into account, so you definitely want to avoid that. But secondly, obviously, where you can add SEO benefit to the article, you do. Optimizing your images. We've talked a lot about that with alt tags and image titles. We've talked about, doing things like inbound links. So if it's an article about a particular product or service that you have, you may want to link that product or service in the article. So now you're linking back to a piece of pillar content, if you will, on your website. So you're creating a situation where you're actually adding SEO benefit to that, even if Google doesn't view that as the primary source of the content. You're then wrapping that content with other things that you're doing to provide positive SEO benefit. All of that being said, as we sit here on September 26th, about a month ago, Google actually rolled out a brand new update, to a fairly large update to their algorithm that they use to place, that they use to define where websites are going to show up in search engine results. They actually call this the helpful content update. Is their actual what they refer to it. It came out in late August. It started rolling out. So what is this update, and why does it mean it? What does that mean for you? Sort of rolls right into the last question that was asked too, about can you over optimize a website page? Google is using artificial intelligence to read these articles, and articles that are written primarily with the purpose to be SEO. This is a huge change because a lot of people have written SEO focused articles. And the idea is that you would write an article specifically to try to hit a certain SEO term or keyword or key phrase. But the article was written in such a way. Google's artificial intelligence has gotten pretty smart, and they're able to pick up on content that's written primarily from an SEO perspective and not really written to be helpful to humans. Don't ask me how. I mean, this is artificial intelligence, but it's pretty good. I mean, Google's figured it out. So what they're really going to start prioritizing is people that are putting content on their website that is written primarily to be helpful to humans, informative, educational, whatever the case may be. They're going to differentiate content that's helpful, like genuinely helpful to people that arrive on that page, versus content that was just put on the website with the mere purpose of trying to come up for particular SEO words or phrases. So that being said, this is a fairly big update that I think is going to start really affecting search engine results. What does that mean for you? You should start wanting to put content on your website that is going to be helpful to people that arrive. Think of a visitor coming to your website and saying, if a visitor came to this website and they read this article, would they feel like they came away more informed, more educated, things like that, such that there would be a benefit to them to do that. So that's where from that perspective, you want to start thinking about the Google results. So that being said, you really have to start thinking about your content differently. A lot of years people have went through the idea of creating content on their website specifically to come up for certain search results. You need to really break yourself of that, start thinking about your content differently, and start asking yourself, is this content going to be helpful to the visitor? And if so, that's got to be your primary purpose. This new Google algorithm is so new that we don't really know all the different impacts it's going to have. But I promise you it's going to be something that you really need to pay attention to, because it's really going to change how search engine results happen going forward. If you want to, definitely, I could probably even link something up in the comments. But here's the thing. Just go ahead and Google helpful content update, Google algorithm helpful content update, and you're going to find plenty of information. Again, this is fairly new. It came out the end of August. It started rolling out. The biggest reason I wanted to share this is, again, even the last question asked about over-optimizing website pages. We really need to start rethinking the way we create content for our website and start putting people first and not trying to game the algorithm first, because Google's getting too smart. And you're actually, when we start talking about a duplicate content penalty or a penalty you can run into from Google, they're going to just start downgrading pages that they feel are created just to try to game the SEO algorithm. So you might not be penalized, but they're going to elevate pages that are helpful to people, and they're going to push down pages that they feel like are written specifically to try to game the SEO algorithm. So in effect, that's going to be a penalty. That's going to downgrade your pages. So that being said, we're in the process of figuring out different ways as an agency we can really start to implement this for our clients in such a way that is really going to be impactful over the next months and years. But it's something you need to be aware of. Absolutely. Make sure if you're using an outside agency that you ask them about what they're doing as far as the Google helpful content update that's recently come out. It's very important, and I think you need to pay attention to it. So I am super sorry I ate up a lot of our morning this morning talking about that, but when we start talking about, how you show up on Google, I think it's super important that we take those things into account. So with that, let me see if we got any questions. So I don't see any questions. Tim actually asked, so I don't see why that's a problem. That's how and why they set it up, right? I'm not sure if I understand exactly your question, Tim. I think what Google wants, here's the thing. A lot of people misunderstand who Google's customers are the people that sit down and type into the Google search engine what they're looking for. The whole thing that makes Google valuable as a tool or valuable as a company is the fact that people view it as a reputable and valuable resource. So what Google wants more than anything is if somebody's searching for something, if somebody's searching for you pick the item, pick the keyword, pick the key phrase. What Google's number one priority is to put at the very top of those search results the most valuable content, the content that the person that's visiting Google and searching for that is going to feel answered their question, gave them the information they were looking for, educated them about something they wanted to know more about. That's Google's number one priority, to make sure that they're elevating websites that give the searcher the information that they're looking for. So many times in the past, what companies would do is they would write content that is specifically targeting a perfect keyword, but it's not very informative. It's written in such a way that it's got all the positive SEO elements to it. It's got keywords, it's got images that are properly optimized, all those different things. But when somebody actually goes to that website and reads what's on the website, they end up coming away not that informed. It was essentially a page that was written to get good SEO results. What Google's saying now is we're actually going to use artificial intelligence to read the page, and we're going to determine whether the page is actually informative, educational, whatever the case may be, versus just written in such a way that it's chock full of SEO, but it's really not that informative. So what they're saying, it's not necessarily like they're essentially completely in line with what their overall mission is to provide you the most valuable results. They now just have technology in the form of artificial intelligence that's allows their bots, if you will, to read millions and millions and millions of websites and determine what is valuable information and what is not valuable information, where that would have been impossible to do with humans. They now have the ability to do that with bots and with artificial intelligence, where they couldn't do that before. So Tim actually said, why would they penalize someone to use it, right? They're not going to penalize somebody to use it, to utilize all those proper SEO things, as long as there's a, the old saying, if you're old like I am, you remember the old Wendy's commercial, where's the beef? A lot of pages are really thin on actual, where's the beef? It's like they're properly SEO'd, but they're really not that informative. They're really not written for humans. They're written for the Google algorithm. Google's figuring that out. So make sure, and that you could go back to your old content and actually beef that up and actually improve that. And that might be maybe one of the easiest ways to get started on doing things, is to make sure there's enough content and enough beef there, if you will, that this content would be beneficial to a human. If it doesn't really read well and there's no real meat and potatoes there, you may want to consider updating it. Billy asks, which of your videos would be a good starting point for someone trying to get started with audience targeting for Google SEM? Actually, Billy, one of the things we're in the process of doing is on my YouTube channel, we're taking all these Marketing Mondays and we're breaking them down. We're actually breaking them down from a standpoint of each individual question, and then we're titling them as to what the question is. So there's dozens and dozens and dozens of videos that aren't 30 minutes long. They're like 3 minutes long or 5 minutes long and answer specific questions. So one of the best places I could point them to do is go to my YouTube channel, and I could link that up in the comments later. That literally is going to break all these down so that you don't have to watch a 30-minute video and hope to hear information. You can go there and scan the titles and look for specific questions that you may want to have the answer to, and then just weed your way through that. Basically, Billy, that might be a good way to get started. And we're going to continue to do that. Like even today, we're going to have multiple questions that I'm answering. That's going to be broken up. Not only will this video be up on my YouTube page, but each one of those individual questions will be broken up and put on there as well. So I think hopefully I answered your question, Tim. I'm not sure if I did, but if I didn't, go ahead and clarify a little bit. But I don't think that Google's really penalizing people as much as they're trying to say this new rollout is designed to really identify the most beneficial information and elevate that to the top. Now, that happening may have the impact of pushing other people lower, but it's not necessarily a penalty. It's just that Google is going to use this new technology to elevate the people to the top that they think deserve to be there because they're writing the most helpful information. So let me go ahead and jump into another question. What does long tail, quote unquote, keywords mean or key phrases mean? This is kind of important because a lot of times people have SEO'd their website or did things for it to be SEO friendly from a particular word or maybe a couple words. But what's happening now is people more and more are starting to just type a sentence into Google. I don't know if you guys do this, but when I sit down in front of Google a lot of times anymore, I literally will type in the better part of a full sentence into my Google search, not a specific word. Like I'm not searching for a particular word or a particular couple words. I'm typically typing in a question or a full sentence and seeing what comes up. That would be what's considered long tail. So creating content on your website that's not just optimized for a particular word or words, but optimized for a question or optimized for a key phrase is important because people are starting to search that way. even more so as people are using voice search. If they a lot of times are using voice, they're on Google and they're actually just asking a question. They're speaking the same way I'm speaking right now to you, and they're asking a question. So typically people aren't going to turn on their voice search and just say a word. They're going to ask a question, or they're going to make a statement or something like that. That's where long tail comes in, and starting to think about SEO as a series of words or a question as opposed to just a single word or words. So long tail just means starting to optimize your SEO to take that into account instead of just having a page optimized for a single word or a single couple words, or not a single couple words, but a couple words versus a broader optimization. So I see that Billy actually linked up my YouTube channel in the comments. So if you guys want to check that out, there's a lot of content. We're continuing to add it all the time, and we're going to try to share that in a lot of different places. But again, there's a lot of it. Each one of these Marketing Mondays typically generates 4 to 6 questions. So every one of these generates 4 to 6 additional micro pieces of video about particular questions. So I don't see any other questions that came in. Actually, Dylan said that's an amazing idea, a good way to create more content. Absolutely, Dylan. If you're creating some content, like you may shoot a video that you use for your company that's maybe a 5-minute video, but maybe that video can be broken down into 4 other pieces. Like maybe the one video talks about all your products and services, but maybe you can do it in such a way that you can break it into 4 pieces, and you can repurpose that video to have 4 smaller different videos talk about each product or service individually. So you have the primary video that talks about all 4 services, and then you have the micro videos that talks about each service individually, depending on the way you created the primary video. So it's a great way to create. In that situation, you've created the same video, but now you have 5 pieces of content instead of 1 piece of content. So yeah, that's the idea, and then properly using it. So Billy says they send me emails with suggestions and updates. How important is it to read these and read them? Second question, I see commercials about voice search companies. I'm assuming you're talking about Google when you say they, Billy. Obviously, anytime Google is the 800-pound gorilla of online search. They own YouTube and obviously Google. Those are the number 1 and number 2 search engines online. So obviously paying attention to what Google says, understanding what updates they have, and making changes to adopt those updates with regard to coming up for search engines and SEO related items are important. So I do think, unless you're getting flooded with a lot of junk type stuff, it always makes sense if Google's sending you something with new information to at least, peruse it and, inform yourself about what those updates are. Second question, I see commercial about voice search companies. I think, again, you got to be careful, with any company, what they're selling you. There's a lot of companies that are doing spam and things like that. But I think it's important to at least understand that, there is this long tail or voice search thing that you need to be aware of. And the way people are searching online now is different than they were searching online 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So the way you're approaching your SEO needs to be slightly different as well. So I got one more question. I think I have 2 minutes. I'm going to jump into that so we get another question asked. This question is, what can I do to improve our LinkedIn presence? LinkedIn is obviously, as most of you know, if you have a page there, is more business oriented, a little bit less social and a little bit more business oriented. A couple things you can do. Make sure you've got not only a LinkedIn personal profile, but you have a LinkedIn business profile. You can build out a business page specific to your business, same way you can do on Facebook or other things. Make sure that's fully filled out, that it explains what your company does and things like that, so that you have that page. On that page, you can post updates, much the same way you do on Facebook or other things. You can post updates about projects or different informative articles, things like that about your company. You want to do that. You want to invite people that relevant people to potentially follow or like that page on LinkedIn. It's very similar in some ways to what you did years ago, maybe with Facebook. With LinkedIn, though, the content needs to be a little bit more business oriented and a little bit less just social oriented. So there's content you might share on Instagram or Facebook that maybe wouldn't be appropriate on LinkedIn. I'd probably keep it more to the informative, tell people about accomplishments of your company or personal accomplishments that might be relevant or informative content. And you want to share that. There's also things you can do. You can publish articles on LinkedIn. So when somebody's searching for a particular topic on LinkedIn, if you've published an article that's gotten a lot of attention, your article might be the thing that pops up when somebody's searching about a particular topic on LinkedIn. And that could drive people back to your company or you personally and actually give, some authoritative credit to you for writing an article that informed them about something. So with LinkedIn, it says, what can I do to improve our LinkedIn presence? A lot of it is just, again, making sure your profiles are filled out fully and then being active on there. It's no different than Facebook, Instagram, Google Business. If somebody goes to your page, your company page, and all the information is filled out, but the last time anything was posted was a year ago, it's not a really great look. They're going to think, why would I follow this page? They're not posting anything. So I'm not saying on LinkedIn you need to post multiple times a day or even multiple times a week, but I would make a habit of getting onto LinkedIn and posting so that people are seeing activity there. And I think that's going to elevate your presence on LinkedIn. And then the other thing is, make sure that, the employees of your company, if they have a LinkedIn page, that they're showing, that they work for your company so that it's showing that they're an employee of your company. Make sure when there's accomplishments or things like that, that you post them there, because those would be things that maybe years ago you would have done a press release for. Those things are really beneficial to put on LinkedIn. It tells people about your company. It tells people about the individuals that work at your company, and creates credibility and expertise and thought leadership in the industry. Or in the industry that you're in. So again, it's activity based. You've got to be on there, but post the right activity. Just don't take stuff that you put on Instagram and just put it on LinkedIn just to get activity there. Make sure that it's catered to LinkedIn, which is going to be a little bit more business, a little bit more informative, a little bit more, things that you would put in a business magazine or the newspaper, talk about your company or something like that. Not necessarily just a goofy video that you shot that was fun, something in your shop. I would say a little bit more away from that, a little bit more business oriented. So anyway, with that, we're actually a couple minutes over, which I'm actually surprised isn't worse with this being the first time I've been back in 7 weeks. But I really appreciate everybody that tuned in today, all the well wishes and things like that. On a positive note, I'm feeling good. I'm hoping to be able to be back and doing Marketing Mondays each week like we'd gotten in the habit of doing. And I appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope you found these valuable. Hope you check out my YouTube channel. Check out how we're breaking these videos up to keep them really nice and approachable for a lot of people to get a lot of questions answered. And with that, I'm going to let you go. Have a great week, everybody. We're heading into October at the end of this week, and I hope everybody's had a great Q3 and looking forward to a great Q4. So with that, take care, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.